Greetings, Poke fans! Zack Attack here, and today we are reacting to Playmore's newest video. We drafted a new competitive Pokemon team. What does that mean? It basically means this is their third season in Draft League, and they are doing the P4G, I'm pretty sure it's called. And basically, it's a lower tier Pokemon Draft League. You've seen me do videos on them before with Bubby here, Bubby the GOAT. And expect more now because of the new Draft League season. But what we haven't done before with them is we haven't reacted to any of their videos in a whole season. I started trying to do that last season with their Week 8 game because it was a crazy game and you all deserve to see it. And of course, Uzi's championship game because history was made. But I really want to try doing this. And if you guys want to keep following with their Draft League, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm. And I'm 5 subs away from 100, and the 1 year anniversary of the channel is almost here, so that would be greatly appreciative of that. But yeah, we're gonna see what team they draft, who the new Bubby is, and I can't wait for the season, man. I cannot wait. Bubby is gonna be the GOAT, and it's gonna be great. Let's go on ahead and get started.
Playmore is officially back, and we've drafted a brand new competitive Pokemon team for this season of the P4G. In this season, there are going to be 14 coaches. Battles will be uploaded every single Sunday. It's an 8-week season. It's incredibly exciting. And week 1's going to be next week, so you better get ready. But before we can get into the battles, we need to tell you guys what Pokemon we drafted. And Tyler, this league's going to be a little bit different from anything we've done so far.
It's a lower tier league, which means you basically take all the good Pokemon and throw a good portion of them out, but that doesn't mean we're left with just scraps. And that's why, even within this, there are different tiers in the lower tier league. Now, that doesn't just mean, John, that we can go willy-nilly and pick all of the top tier Pokemon onto their team. So right here, you can see how many Pokemon we can actually pick from each tier. And just like our past leagues, there are Terra Captains. They have to come from that bottom tier. And while we can't pick all the Pokemon from the top tier, John, we might just get to pick the best one because you never guess who got the #1 overall pick in this draft.
I bet I can. It's us, Playmore.
Yeah.
#1 overall pick. There's nothing else for us to say, so Ben, take it away.
Hello, Playmore fans. It is the Beneral, back with another season, and I'm here to give our first Draft League pick and the first overall pick for this P4G low tier season. Now, there's been a lot of pressure deciding this picture. I've ignored our league owner, John, quite a bit when figuring this out because I have my own preference. And we're bringing back a returning Pokemon from our previous season in the SPL. We'll be taking Crocodile as our first overall draft pick.
Ooh, okay, they're taking Crocodile. I really like Crocodile. It's a grounded dark type, and it's from one of, if not my favorite generation, Generation 5. I'm a Gen 5 baby. Pokemon Black 2 was my first game, actually. And it's got 2 abilities that the Benner was like in the run a lot. Intimidate and a Moxie. You're probably going to see Crocodile every week. Could be a Stealth Rock set. Could be an offensive sweeper. Intimidate is likely to be on something like defensive on a support set, so it can get up Stealth Rocks freely. And Moxie is likely to be on a fully offensive Crocodile. But there's a lot of things this thing can do other than just set up rocks or maybe go hyper offensive. I'm sure John and Tyler would talk about it a lot as they go through their analysis. but this is a really fire pick. I don't know if it was the best option on the board for them, even though they did have the number 1 pick, but it's definitely not a bad option. I really like Crocodile here, and hopefully the rest of the team follows suit.
A familiar face to start this draft off, Crocodile was actually a Pokemon that we brought on to our last season team late into the season, and it was actually featured in our playoff game. Unfortunately, we lost that game, but Crocodile is going to be our captain this year. Not Terra captain, just, a regular captain that will hopefully lead us to great heights. And I have a lot of confidence in Crocodile. Me and Ben talked a lot about what this first pick could be, and he convinced me that Crocodile would just be the best of all worlds, and it's hard to really go against that line of thinking. Crocodile is a Pokemon I'm very familiar with. It's really solid across the board, 2 incredible abilities, but low tier, the ability to both get Stealth Rocks up, but then stab, knock off all of the Pokemon around is fantastic. There's going to be so many Pokemon. Holding a Violite, getting rid of those will be fantastic. And just items in general, it's really nice to get that all over. This thing can be a support Pokemon. It can be a very offensive Pokemon. It could sweep teams. I really, really love what this brings. It's a really great start. We'll probably see it in most weeks. And that's what you want in a number 1 overall pick, Tyler.
It reminds me a lot of Garchomp from last year. It feels like a similar role where we're going to see it used in different ways. Sometimes it's just going to be there to inflict as much damage as possible. Sometimes it's going to be the Stealth Rock. Sometimes the main mission is to have it out there, knock off every item possible. We might even get some loaded dice Scale Shot at some point. Now, we can't tear a dragon and be super cool with it, but I also love anything from Gen 5, so I'm a huge fan of this pick. If you want to know what Ben has to say
Gen
about
5
this one,
thing,
and
let's
every
go.
pick, he's got his own thorough analysis uploaded. You can click on that.
So one thing with this video, this will also be downlinked in my description. The general talks a lot about the team, more than they will and I will. So if you want to go watch that team builder, or team breakdown rather, you definitely should. The general gives a lot more background knowledge just in general about the team and what he hopes for it. And he even reveals who the new Bubby is. Because they don't, and I won't either. I want y'all to be surprised. So if you want to know who the new Bubby is, head down to the link in the description below and watch the General's video. I promise you, you will not be disappointed.
As well, but John, I think we need to find out who the second pick is.
And it's worth noting that this is a snake draft, so we had to wait a very long time to go all the way to the final pick and then all the way back around to us. But because we had the first overall pick, we actually get 2 picks in a row, and that was incredibly useful. Ben, what'd you pick?
For round 2, we pick Hatterene.
Okay, so Hatterene is definitely a crazy one, right? Because Hatterene is one of the more stronger Pokemon, especially on the special side. It's got very good bulk on both physical and special defense, but it's super slow. I want to say base 29 speed. We'll see it when the base stats pop up. But Hatterene's main thing is to either set up with Calm Mind, nuzzle opponents to make them paralyzed, and set up Trick Room so it can reverse sweep. I do think that we're going to see all 3 versions of Hatterene. Because with the way that the team is, the way the general likes to build teams, it's bulky offense. So, and Hatterene's a pretty good definition of that. The speed tier isn't there. I'll talk a lot about speed tiers as we go through the draft, but I'm sure this is Playmore we're talking about. But Hatterene, love this pick. You get your Fairy type to start the Fairy Dragon Steel Core. And of course, with Crocodile, the previous pick, you already get your EQ and Ground type. So, great 2 picks thus far. Let's see how the general keeps rolling.
This time we grab a Pokemon that we haven't already had on the squad, and this is a Pokemon I'm really excited to see, Tyler. It's really important in any draft to get a fairy Pokemon, but especially in low tiers, there's only so many good fairies, and Hatterene is a terrifying one. Magic Bounce is a fantastic ability that we're always going to see. The special attack on this thing is monstrous, but it's not just going to be a special attacker. It can Calm Mind and set up the sweep that way. It can Trick Room and sweep that way, but it also can be fantastic for speed control in general with Nuzzle or Thunder Wave, which is really fantastic. I'm pretty sure it does have access to Healing Wish if you want to get a little crazy and heal something in the back. So people always have to be worried about us healing Crocodile to come back with a vengeance a second time or any of these other picks. This is a Pokemon that can really, really benefit itself and a lot of other Pokemon on the team. Really excited to see this thing.
We talk a lot in draft about speed control. And the fact that Hatterene can set up with Trick Room and is so abysmally slow that there's nothing at that point that's going to outspeed it. But then also, if you don't get a Trick Room up, it can sit there and nuzzle and just be super annoying to opposing teams. I love this pick. I personally love some bulky special attackers, and that's exactly what we're getting in the form of Hatterene. One Calm Mind is enough for this thing to do some serious damage.
And not to mention that it does have Draining Kiss, allowing it to heal itself up with a stab attacking move once it Calm Minds up. Just a fantastic Pokemon. But we were actually able to pick back-to-back, so let's see what the other pick in this little wheel was.
On the second half of the wheel, Playmore chooses Tentacruel as their third overall pick.
Ooh, Tentacruel. Okay, Tentacruel is a bit of an odd Pokemon. It's not very offensive, but even still, 80 in I think it was special attack and 70 in physical is still not bad. And its main thing is going to be to rapid spin away hazards and clear out toxic spikes with its poison typing, and of course probably set them back up in return. However, the thing with Tentacruel is that it's very specially bulky. So imagine with a team that's drafted for a special attacker just smacking an assault vest on this thing. Crazy stuff. You really see Tentacruel in more of a defensive support role with Rapid Spin, but it can do some stuff offensively too with Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave. It can flip turn out. This Pokemon is gonna play a role in a match. I can already feel it.
I absolutely love everything about this pick. Tentacruel is actually a Pokemon that I used myself in the past when I was in previous seasons of the P4G, and it's only gotten better since then, especially in a low-tier draft. This is just a jack of all trades, master of none, one of the best support Pokemon out there, and the key Pokemon that we really needed last season, Tyler. We did not have a great way to get rid of hazards. This immediately gives us a fantastic Rapid Spinner. It's a grounded poison type, so we can soak up Toxic Spikes if opponents want to set them up against us, and we can set up Toxic Spikes ourselves. Tentacruel now has access to Flip Turn as well, which is fantastic, as that was really the worst thing about using it in the past, just personally. It's a great pivot Pokemon, but you gotta switch it in, switch it out. Now we can Flip Turn to gain momentum. I really love the special bulk and speed on this thing. It's not the strongest Pokemon, but it's just going to be able to be the perfect glue Pokemon, I think, on a lot of teams that Ben builds. And I'm really excited to see it on one of my teams once again.
The big thing that stands out to me is the speed that you mentioned. There's no way I'm alone in this. I did not realize that Tentacruel had 100 speed, which is really good. Now, we've all seen the memes of Toadscruel just around everywhere in Scarlet Violet, but Tentacruel with 100 speed, Flip Turn, it's notoriously specially bulky. Imagine that. You add in an Assault Vest. This thing can do, again, a lot of different things, a lot of utility. The big thing that you mentioned, we can get rid of those hazards in multiple ways. I love this pick. Another big thing there with it being our third pick in the draft, we dropped down to Tier 3, so we can still swoop back and get another Tier 2 Pokemon. So as we swoop back to the end of the pecking order in the draft, let's see if that's what Ben does with this pick.
For round 4, Playmore chooses the Tier 2 Superior.
Okay, I really love Superior, I don't think Samurott is in this draft because I believe Samurott's an A tier, so it's a little bit too high. But I do really, really love Superior, and mainly because of Contrary plus Leaf Storm. But it could also be a setup Pokemon with Coil and do some damage that way. Superior is I wouldn't say it's one of my all-time favorite starters, but it's definitely up there. As it's definitely a top 10 for me, and is theorized to be one of the starters in Legends ZA, which is kind of funny because ZA Zacatat. No, I'm just kidding. But this is a funny joke. I had to make it. I do really like this pick. You get that grass to add to the grass water fire core. Yeah, the Benadryl is really cooking right now, so I really hope he continues.
If Tentacruel was a jack of all trades, master of none, Superior is the opposite, as it's the master of one thing. Contrary Leaf Storm. It's going to outspeed a lot of Pokemon. It's going to Leaf Storm. And then because of that fantastic of ability, its special attack is going to get boosted higher and higher and higher. And while that's going to be the thing I'm most excited for, Tyler's going to be most excited for, Ben's going to be most excited for, and I promise you guys will be most excited for, it can do a few other very annoying things. It does have access to Glare, which is a very frustrating move because of that normal typing. Being able to paralyze way more things than like Stun Spore would be able to, or any of the other annoying paralysis moves. It also has Leaf Seed, which is infuriating. Another knockoff user. The Great Grass typing is going to take a lot of hits, and you want to have that Fire, Grass, Water core. But Tyler, it doesn't have the greatest coverage, so as I said, maybe a one-trick pony.
Yeah, I think the entire goal with this thing is going to be to throw it in and obliterate with Leaf Storm, which, because of that ability Contrary, you're basically getting to use a 130 damage move, plus stab, plus maybe you got a choice specs on it, and then you're basically getting a nasty plot in the same turn to get a couple of special attack boosts. I also love having Glare on it. We mentioned Nuzzle early on with Hatterene. You mix that with Toxic Spikes on Tentacruel, and all of a sudden we've got a team that could dish out status problems all over the place. It's also another Gen 5 mod. I wouldn't be upset if the rest of the team falls in line with this trend so far. Just half of them from Gen 5 so far. A+ from me.
Once again, we had two picks back-to-back, so let's see what Ben took with the next pick.
For the first pick of round 5, Claymore Esports chooses their first Tier 4, Blaziken.
Ooh. Not only they complete the Grass, Water, Fire core, Blaziken's Tier 4 in this draft, apparently. They get the fire coverage, they get the fighting coverage. A Pokemon that can U-turn, be both physical or special depending on the investment. And I know this is a Jaden Sarah Pokemon, but that's besides the point. The point of the matter is that Blaziken can do a lot. This might be like one of the steals. The fact that Blaziken's not off the board yet kind of shocks me. I'm getting all flustered over here. Let's just see what John and Tyler have to say, because I love this pick, and you guys are going to see why.
From the very beginning of the draft, Ben told me that he wanted to draft Blaziken. Every single round, he'd mentioned this Pokemon, and somehow we were able to get it with the number 5 pick. Ben thinks this was the steal of Tier 4, maybe the steal of the draft, and it's hard to really argue with him. While Blaziken will not have access to Speed Boost, one more time, no Speed Boost, it's banned. This is still going to be an absolute monster. Has a really fantastic physical attack and special attack stat, which is really, really great in this format especially. You just don't know what this thing is going to do. It's going to hit you on either side. It's going to be a mixed attack or physical special, this, that, and the other. Very hard to plan for. It keeps getting new moves to utilize, like U-turn and another knockoff user, which is just great. And this is also a Pokemon that can set up. It doesn't need to be Choice Scarfed or Choice Banded. Very versatile. And Tyler, Ben's already saying it may be our kill leader. That's pretty exciting to hear.
I love this pick. The fact that Blaziken was even in Tier 4 is crazy to me. And for this to be our first pickup from one of those lower tiers feels great. The big thing that comes to mind for me, when you take the speed boost away, obviously it takes some of the flash, but I think about Lucario, John, and that's kind of the vibe that Blaziken gives me. It's a little bit slower than Lucario, but it can be a physical attacker, a special attacker, and you don't have to give away to your opponent which one of those you're going to be, or you can just go in with a straight-up mixed attack set. You're always going to have your opponent on their toes, and when you have that deception, at any point, if you want to run a Swords Dance, you could set up, sweep, win a battle. I think that's why Ben thinks it's going to be in contention for the kill leader in the league. This is a fantastic pick. I don't know if we should have taken it number 1 overall, like Ben might have mentioned a couple of times coming into the draft, but here, like you said, it might just be the steal of the draft.
For round 6, John told me he would love me even if I was a worm, so we choose Earthworm.
Ooh. Now they get the steal for the Fairy Steel Dragon Core. So here's my thing with Earthworm. Body press, because this thing's physical defense is monstrous, but it's also it's mostly going to be a stealth rocker, maybe a spiker as well. I see Earthworm being more of a utility support Pokemon. Of course, it can also Heavy Slam. It can also Iron Head. Earth Eater makes it immune to its main weakness in Ground. And Ground has obviously been a big problem for Playmore. If you've seen any of their matches, Ground has always been a glaring weakness in their team. This, even though it being a Steel type, being immune to that Ground typing because of its ability makes it all the more special. And I do see this. I don't see it as getting really many kills because it's mostly going to be a support. But I still like this pick. You can maybe even run lefties on it to give it some longevity and recovery. You can do a lot with Earthworm, and I can't wait to see how Ben utilizes it.
This is a Pokemon I've been very excited to see in draft, and in a low-tier draft, it makes me even more excited. A Steel-type Pokemon that is immune to Ground-type moves with its ability is fantastic, and considering that Sandvale is banned, we're going to be seeing a lot of Earth Eater on this Pokemon. Now, it's also worth mentioning that Shed Tail is also banned.
So many bans.
There's a few more bans in the lower-tier league, so it's worth noting that. Don't yell at us when we don't use those moves, but I'm sure Earthworm is still going to be useful. Earthworm's significantly less useful. Having another Pokemon that can set up hazards with Stealth Rocks and Spikes is going to be fantastic. Going to put a lot less pressure on Crocodiles, who always have Stealth Rocks, which frees it up to do a lot more terrifying things to the opponents, which is great. Really nice that we got Body Press at this point. It makes a Pokemon with 145 defense a lot scarier. Really, really like this thing. I think it just fits a fantastic role on the team. And Tyler, a Ground type that's not worried of, a Steel type not worried of Ground types. Very cool. Take it away. I'm losing it.
Earthworm, not Earthworm. It might not deal one direct point of damage this entire season, and still will have significant use just through being a pivot against Ground types with John. We saw last season many, many times were a thorn in our side, not having that pivot, because most Ground type moves are very strong and they're hard to avoid. Having one that it's not just going to be not very effective against, it's gone completely. Fantastic. More hazards is great. The few times it does attack, Body Press and Heavy Slam are probably the only moves we're going to see it do all season long, and we know how much damage it can do with the Iron Defense Body Press combo. But don't sleep on the fact, John, that this is a worm that's almost 700 pounds, okay? So it's going to be dropping down, and Heavy Slam's going to hurt. So while I say it might do 1 point of damage, I'm calling it right now. My sleeper pick to pick up more kills than expected, although the over-under is probably at a half a kill for the season. I'm taking the over on Orthworm right now. Stamp it.
Round 7, Playmore chooses the Chili Ghost, Frostlass.
Ooh, Frostlass. Okay, here's my take on Frostlass. Frostlass usually has very mean and spooky dex entries, but that's not why it's here. Frostlass is actually pretty fast, believe it or not, and even though most of its time it's going to use special moves, it can still utilize its physical attack in more ways than one. It got a few extra buffs, things like triple axle and poltergeist. And it can also will-o-wisp opponents as well. And among a few other things, it can be very disruptive. Throw some plans from the opponent out the window. I doubt we'll see it much, but the times that it is brung, the Venerable is gonna have a plan for it, and I cannot wait to see what this thing can do. Yeah, this pick is pretty exciting.
Unlike Orthworm, Frostlass was not a Pokemon I was very excited to see in draft or on our team, but the more I look into this thing, the more I realize it's gotten a lot more fun in the recent generations. Frostlass apparently can be a physical offensive user. I didn't know that. I just assumed it was good special attack with its fantastic speed. No, it's 80-80, and now that it has, Poltergeist, and then also the triple axle, decently new moves, really, really fantastic when you slap a choice band on there. Now, I'm used to this being a focus sash lead. You get the spikes out, Taunt, Destiny Bond, Ice Beam, Will-O-Wisp, all of those shenanigans. But at this point, this thing can do a lot more than I would have expected. The Ice offensive typing and Ghost offensive typing is fantastic. Having a Ghost Pokemon just as a spin blocker is great. Frostlass is a Pokemon that usually gets pushed into a sash lead role, but I actually think, especially in the low tiers and on this team, it can do a lot of different things. We may not see it often, but I've seen Ben use Pokemon like this in the past, and I think he's going to have some really fun sets for us.
I'm going to be honest, the only experience I have with Frostlass is the really annoying one with the Snowbell set, with the Hail that's set up by the 7th gym leader in the Sinnoh region, whose name I shall not say. But unfortunately for us, we don't get that broken version. Though I do love what can be done here. I talked about the status moves earlier, John. The more classic set for Frostlass, we can still just spit out Will-O-Wisp all over the place if we want to. Have Thunder Wave there. We've got more paralysis potential. I don't know how much we'll need it with everything else that we have in the status department. But as much as we talked about the importance of items, and I feel like that gets elevated even more in this lower tier league compared to a normal one, because some of these Pokemon, you're completely relying upon their item for them to be useful. To continue to have these, we got knockoff everywhere. To have Poltergeist now, I love how this team is being built, not just to be strong, but I feel like overall this is a team that's built to thrive specifically in this format. And this is another Pokemon that on the surface isn't a super flashy pick, but I think it's going to end up doing a lot more than maybe we thought when we immediately saw it.
For round 8, we choose to put our opponents in a sticky situation and choose Galvantula.
Ooh. Galvantula finally getting the speedy electric type. Aside from the bulky waters like Tentacruel, the Beneral, and of course many Draft League players like to get a speedy electric type. And this time for the Beneral, it's Galvantula. Sorry. So here's the thing. Galvantula's main thing is using Sticky Web, and Sticky Web is an entry hazard that makes the opponent slower. It slows their speed by 1 stage. But it can also does a lot of Compound Eyes Thunder. What I mean by that is Compound Eyes ability that boosts Pokemon's accuracy by 25%. Thunder is already like 75% accurate. You boost up a Compound Eyes, it goes up to 97.5. Even though it's not rain boosted, Thunder is still going to hit. And it's going to hit a lot more than it would normally. And we don't really have a rain setter. The only rain setter that we would even use is Tentacruel, and that would just be a waste of a move slot. When we could just Compound Eyes Galvantula and let this thing cook. And of course, Bug Buzz is normal Bug Stab. Energy Ball, Volt Switch, things like that are very standard on Galvantula. So I'm very excited to see this Pokemon. And also, as Tyler was going to mention, another Gen 5 Pokemon. I really like the Galvantula pick here. And let's see what else the boys got to say.
Tyler, Galvantula is a pick that makes me so unbelievably happy. I had this Pokemon on my very first Draft League team, and it was the reason I made the championship. We don't need to talk about the championship game, but this thing saved me in the very end. And that's what I really love about Galvantula. When you think about this Pokemon, you think about Compound Eyes, Thunder, and Sticky Webs. That's kind of it. And I really think this Pokemon, with its really, really good speed tier and really solid special attack, can be a Pokemon that can clean up late game. You know I love my fast electric types, and that is exactly what this thing's going to be. Love throwing a Life Orb on this thing, just thunder everything, Energy Ball, Bug Buzz, Volt Switch out of there. Really cool Pokemon. But just in general, having a Sticky Web user with all of the different speed control on this team, but then also to have our second pick, Hatterene, no speed to speak of, and Trick Room. How are opponents going to prep for this team, not knowing if we're going to have all these different types of hazards, Sticky Web to slow them down, or if we're going to go the other way, Trick Room up, and then outslow them to outspeed them?
And how are opponents going to prepare for a team that has another Gen 5 Pokemon? I mean, this team is busted at this point. Now, specifically,
Tower's right.
This is a really good pick. Like, I love getting Galvantula here. For everything you just listed, I specifically love being able to Volt Switch around with a Pokemon as fast as Galvantula. I know it's going to have, a lot of times the main role is to just come out at the start of the battle, get Sticky Web up. If you've done that, you've achieved it. But if Galvantula can stick around and deal heavy damage in and out with Volt Switch, this thing can do a lot of different things. I mean, the main thing is when it's just spamming Thunder that cannot miss because of its ability. But I think we're going to see a few battles where it sticks around and maybe does a little bit more than we expect. It's getting tough, John, with how good these Pokemon have been to piece together week by week who's most likely to get left out. Because so far, of all 8 Pokemon we've drafted, you can make a case, regardless of even seeing what's on the other side, of piecing them together, not just by their individual, what they can do, but there's a lot of different synergy on this team, like you talked about. If you want to go into Trick Room, do we want a faster team that can then even control speed even more with Sticky Web? Ben's piecing this puzzle together really nicely so far.
And we still have 2 more Pokemon to draft, what makes it even more exciting. Oh, 3 more. Ben still has 3 more picks to go. Very excited to see what else he's got for us.
Round 9, Playmore chooses Porygon 2.
Ooh. So Porygon 2 is basically just another Trick Room user. But there's also something else that Porygon 2 can do. And that is, it can be the most bulkiest, tankiest duck you've ever seen in your life. Porygon 2 can evolve. So it can use the Eviolite, however you pronounce it. And like I said, Trick Room user. So if you don't want to bring Hatterene, you just bring Porygon 2 instead. But it's also a little bit stronger than it looks. And it's bulkier than its evolution, Porygon Z. Not as offensively strong, but it's not as weak but even though it is a little bit weaker in the offensive department, it's not by much. And it can probably rack up more damage than Porygon 2 can because of its bulk, which makes this thing super threatening. And of course, it can recover as well. It's got Bolt Beam coverage, which is basically just Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, like Electric Ice coverage. This thing can do a lot, and I'm very glad the Benro was able to pick it up.
Well, Tyler's mentioned a lot about Gen 5 Pokemon. I know a lot of these lower tier threats from when I played Gen 5 competitively, Porygon 2 being one of my favorite things to use back in the day. Now, it's not the same thing that I used back then. It doesn't have Toxic, and Recover doesn't have as many PP as it used to have, so you can't just sit there and stall things to death. But this is a very hard Pokemon to take down, and a really hard Pokemon to switch in. Tyler, this thing has 3 incredible abilities. Trace being amazing in Draft League. Download just being so fun to get those free special attack or attack boosts. And Analytic being used in really solid spots if you do outslow opponents. 105 special attack is nothing to scoff at. It's got Bolt Beam coverage. A Violate is always going to be on this thing. But it also gives us another Trick Room user. This thing is going to be able to tank so many hits, fire back in a fantastic way, but also adds another Pokemon to Ben's growing arsenal. It's going to be so hard for opponents to figure out what we want to do. A well-timed Trick Room can just win us the game, and even without that, it's going to be hard to take down and very frustrating to go against.
Yeah, this is a Pokemon that thrives either with Trick Room up or not, depending on what ability you're going to run on it, because if you've got Analytic, forget Trick Room, just sit back and tee off with that boost, and it's going to be able to absorb hits. I mentioned earlier, especially in this lower tier format, a lot of Pokemon are made or broken by their item. A Violite turns this thing into a bulky monster. Ben described it as the closest thing we've got in terms of a tanky duck to Cresselia. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's really bulky. It's going to stick around. It's going to be annoying. And the fact that it can be that Trick Room setter if we're not able to do it with Hatterene, make that switch, bing, bang, boom, set up from there. Another Pokemon, like we've talked about, that fits into either archetype. Right now, it's very clear we've got 2 different teams that Ben can roll out, 2 different styles of teams, and yet so many of our Pokemon can fit into either of those, to where even if Ben knows 100% what his plan is, and he's got those 2 different styles, the opponent is never going to know, just based off the team that Ben brings, which one it's going to be for a given battle.
To start the final wheel, Playmore will take first tier 5, Rampardos.
Ooh. Rampardos. Okay, here's the thing with Rampardos. I know John and Tyler are going to talk about it a lot, so I won't waste too much time. But even though this thing is a rock type with garbage defenses, and even the rock types tend to have better defenses, not as good as steel types, but even though they tend to have somewhat better defenses, they're not as fast. I mean, it's not all steel types are fast, and some rock types are fast. But you get what I'm trying to say. Rampardos is only I want to say 80 base speed. Defenses are not that great. I want to say 50 special defense and 60 physical defense. Garbage. But its physical attack is 165, which makes it the 10th highest physical attack stat, Mega Pokemon included. And Mega Pokemon aren't in the game anymore. I mean, they will be in ZA, but that's not the point. Without the Megas, it's maybe number 3, number 4 in terms of highest physical attack in the game. This thing is a monster. And it could very well be the kill leader if the Benro brings it enough and utilizes it in the right situations. Is that going to be a very big if? Yes. Is it impossible? Definitely not. This is Rampardos we're talking about here. And it's got picked up by the Benro. Benro's one of the best coaches in the business. It's definitely not impossible.
I gotta be honest, this might be my favorite pick of the entire draft. Tier 5 Rampardos, making it one of our Terra captains. This Pokemon has 165 attack. We're in a low tier league. What is switching into that? And if we have a Rock Terra type, with Head Smash? Are
Hello?
you kidding me? Nothing is switching into that, but it can also have the Ground Terra type, the Grass Terra type. It's going to be so hard for opponents to switch into this thing or predict what Terra we're going to use, because if we bring this thing, you better be ready for the Terra. With that 58 speed, Tyler, you've talked a lot about how we can really be a speedier team or a slower team. This thing is going to absolutely abuse Trick Room, but it also has Trailblaze to get a little bit faster. We can Choice Scarf it. We can Rock Polish with this thing. You know, we can set up
It was
Sticky
Rock Polish,
Webs
actually.
to help this thing outspeed the opponents. You know, this is a Pokemon that is going to win multiple battles this season. I'm very confident of that. I feel like every time it's brought, the opponent's going to be quaking in their boots, as this thing is truly impossible to switch in. Thankfully for them, it does not have great defensive stats, but that may not matter, is set up appropriately.
You know, in all of Pokemon, including Megas, Rampardos has the 10th highest attack stat, just ahead of it for perspective. With an attack stat 2 points higher is Ultra Necrozma. That's how strong this thing is. Like right behind it, Mega Banette, Mega Gallade, Mega Tyranitar. Oh, there's Groudon, Rayquaza, Deoxys. They don't compare to Rampardos. This thing is going to deal out so much damage. I think we both love this pick because we love our physical attackers, and we've played maybe a little bit too much to Ben to just unleash some Pokemon in the past. There's no way not to unleash Rampardos. That's pretty much the only way to use this Pokemon, and that's why I love it. This is another one-trick pony. You can switch up its items. You might use some different moves, but this thing is out here to deal damage and deal a lot of it. I love this pick. In Tier 5, 165 attack. Great pick with our second to last pick by the Beneral.
And for Playmore's final draft pick, Terra Captain, and Tier 5, we will take Avalon.
Ooh. Okay, Avalon's a bit of a fancy one, right? Like, they take the table with their last pick in the draft. So here's the thing with Avalon, right? It doesn't have very good special defense, but it's basically just another Earthworm. But Ice type and a little bit bulkier. Here's the thing. It's not going to be a hazard setter, but it can body press, it can heavy slam, and it also can EQ, avalanche, ice spinner, things like that. However, its ice typing so it holds it back. It could be a Trick Room sweeper because of its low speed, but it has garbage special defense. You can terrestrialize it because it's a Tier 5 Terra Captain to get rid of that ice typing, so it has better defenses as well and fewer weaknesses. I really like what the Beneral did with this draft, and I really think it's going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of teams.
And our final Pokemon this season is a giant table. Avalugg, another Gen 5 Pokemon, very, 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 very bulky, and because this is a Tier 5 Pokemon, our other Terra Captain. Now, Ben has been very big on getting Ice Pokemon, where we can Terra them into different typings, and that's pretty smart, as Ice is not the greatest typing in the world, especially defensively, but it can be great offensively, so being able to still have that Ice typing if we want to go a little bit more offensive, but being able to go Water or Fairy, if we do want to stay a little bit more defensive, is great. 184 defense is absurd. 117 attack, pretty solid. 28 speed, another thing that can handle, can just, use the Trick Room well, and possibly sweep a team. I mean, 117 is better than you would expect, but more than likely we're going to see a lot of defensive table with the Rapid Spin, doing the old Rapid Spin thing, which would be an issue in Trick Room because that will raise its speed, which is actually kind of a funny little thing with Avalugg. Either way, really solid final member of the team that we may not see all the time, Tyler, but it'll do a few things.
I do have to offer one bit of commentary on your notes.
Gen
As
6?
the official head of the Council of Gen 5.
Yes.
This is a Gen 6, Gen 6er.
That's okay.
You fool!
We still like it. We'll still let him in. Like Avalok can still come to the party.
Was this really Gen 6?
Yes,
yeah,
John.
it is. It doesn't seem right, does it? It's a table from Gen 5 would never introduce something as simple as a table.
No.
Ignore,
No snowflakes, right?
Yeah, no. Ignore the ice cream.
Yep.
Anyway, great Pokemon, bulky, physically, especially not at all. It would go down if I threw a match at it. But the big thing with this one, I think this is the first Pokemon, depending on how Ben uses it, that if it's brought, it might tip our cap a little bit in terms of what we're doing with the team. Because if Avalok is your Terra Captain, more than likely it's with a Trick Room set. Now, it doesn't have to be. It can just be to lean into that bulk. And physically, like you talked about, we can't overlook 117 attack. That's really good. Maybe it's just there to clear hazards. It could be the Rapid Spinner for a given battle. I'm interested now. I love this pairing of Avalok and Rampardos as the Terra Captains. I'm interested to see how Ben uses the two of them as to not give away the strategy for a given battle on the front end, because Rampardos, we talked about, it feels like it can kind of do both. Avalok leans into just how powerful it can be with Trick Room. I guess the same can kind of apply to Rampardos, but you can run a Trailblaze set to where maybe you don't want your Trick Room up. Both of them physically very strong Terra Captains, and I think overall that's just the big thing that Ben wanted to get with these Terra Captains. Pokemon that can deal damage and really take advantage of being able to have that type change.
I'm still stuck on this not being a Gen 5 Pokemon. I just envision myself going out into that icy area with the Paratics and the Snowflakes and then Table Guy, but Gen 6 does have one of the weirdest Pokedexes in the world, and considering I'm talking about this and it's not very relevant to the team, it's clear that we are done with our draft analysis. This will be our team for this season of Play More. So excited to be back in the P4G. This is a league I have loved competing in. I am very excited for our Week 1 battle, which Tyler is going to be on the Beneral's birthday.
Ooh.
We're having a
Starting the
birthday
season.
party!
Yay!
A birthday battle.
Skip it battle for the Beneral! Yeah!
It's going to be great. It will be a little awkward if that's not a W, so I need all of you guys to come with your party hats on.
You heard him. You
And
heard
your
him.
puppies.
And bring the bubbies. Bring the bubbies.
Bring your bubbies. Get excited. More Play More merch on the way, which is very exciting. But that's all for us. We'll talk with you guys next week. I hope you're excited for a great season. And until then, peace.
Wow, what a draft analysis by John, Tyler, and the Beneral. Go watch the Beneral's video. We're done here, so oh, this is crazy. I'm really looking forward to the season. I hope you are. We're gonna have the Bubby videos. Every time Bubby makes an appearance, we'll have one next week for sure. Probably have a YouTube short because it's the Beneral's birthday. You gotta do the highlight reel for the Beneral's birthday. But yeah, we'll definitely react to the battle as well. I'm looking forward to it. I know you guys are too. So that's all I have for now. Till the next time, Poke fans. Gotta catch them all!